Hello, you are welcome to Seed Matters, Special Education and Disability Matters. This is a platform where we discuss everything about something and something about everything in special education and disabilities. My name is Ebi Carlo Obo. Today, we'll be talking about types of hearing impairment, which some people will also refer to as types of hearing loss. We have different typology of hearing impairment. How do I mean by typology of hearing impairment? Different categorization under types of hearing impairment. For example, we have degree-based typology. In degree-based typology, that is where we have deafness and hard of hearing, where we have deaf and hard of hearing, or deafness and hard of hearing. What is the difference between these two? The difference between these two is deafness is a complete or total inability to use the auditory system for the ordinary purpose of communication. It is the complete inability to use the auditory system or the hearing system for the purpose of communication with or without hearing aid, with or without amplification. That is deafness. Complete inability to use the hearing system, the auditory system, for the purpose of communication, listening, talking, for the purpose of communication, day-to-day communication, with or without hearing aid, with or without amplification. That is deafness or deaf. The second one is hard of hearing. Hard of hearing or partial hearing by some people is a defective hearing that can still be used for the purpose of communication with or without hearing aid or amplification. It is a hearing that can be improved through hearing aid or amplification, but basically it is still functional for the purpose of communication. Persons with hard of hearing, in most cases, still use speech, and they may still have residual hearing. They still perceive some sound with or without amplification to the extent they can still use auditory-based communication, sometimes with visual supplement. Meaning, when there is a visual supplement, when you add something visual, it will help them. There are those that still speech read. In most cases, these two types of hearing impairment under degree typology are subjective. They are subjective because those that cannot hear at all, we easily note them. And we can say this person doesn't hear at all. And they use sign language. And those that have defective hearing, to the extent they have hearing aid, they have amplification devices, or they even speech read, look at you very well. When you call them from behind, they can't hear, but when you come to their front, they will listen and hear, listening through their eyes. We know that these ones, they have hearing problem, but they can still use their hearing for the day-to-day activities of their life. So they have hard of hearing, they have partial hearing. So you know that these are subjective assessments. Once we subject them to audiological assessment, they will be able to get the decibels through which they hear, where we'll be able to categorize them into mild hearing loss, moderate hearing loss, severe hearing loss, profound hearing loss, moderately profound hearing loss. These are different levels of hearing based on audiological assessment. Basically, we have been able to talk about degree typology under types of hearing impairment. And under degree typology, we have been able to establish deaf and hard of hearing, or deafness and hard of hearing. And we have said that deaf or deafness is complete inability to use the auditory system for the purpose of communication, with or without hearing aid, with or without amplification. Whereas hard of hearing or Partial hearing is a defective hearing that is still functional for the purpose of communication with or without amplification devices, with or without hearing aids. Another typology of hearing impairment is time of onset typology. Time of onset typology. Under this, we have the congenital hearing loss, congenital hearing impairment. This is a hearing impairment that results at birth or immediately after birth. It is a hearing impairment that results even from the womb or immediately after birth. In most cases, it is the complete deafness, to the extent the person will not be able to use the auditory system for the purpose of communication. It is a hearing impairment that occurs at birth. Congenital hearing impairment. Congenital at birth. The second one is adventitious hearing impairment. Adventitious hearing loss. This is an acquired hearing loss, acquired later in life. It was not present at birth, but acquired later in life as a result of sickness, accident, and other extraneous factors. It could be infection, it could be rubella, it could be smallpox, it could be drug reaction. So the person under adventitious hearing impairment was born with normal hearing, but lost the ability to hear later in life. So that is adventitious, acquired hearing impairment. It was acquired later in life. It was not present at birth. Congenital was present at birth. Acquired was not present at birth, but was acquired later in life. Another type of hearing impairment under time of onset typology is prelingual hearing impairment or prelingual hearing loss. Prelingual in the sense that this deafness was acquired before language acquisition, or the deafness or the hearing impairment, the loss occurred before language acquisition. Prelingual, it happened before language was acquired. So these people are basically the ones that are deaf, that use just sign language, because they have not acquired any language at all, and you cannot use what you have not acquired. So somehow the congenital deaf are also prelingual deaf. These are people that use sign language as their primary mode of communication. They have not acquired language before hearing impairment sets in, so they were not able to acquire language. Then the last one is the postlingual hearing impairment, postlingual hearing loss. This is a hearing loss that starts after language has been acquired. Hearing loss that sets in after language has been acquired. So this is also in line with acquired or adventitious hearing impairment. In most cases, these people have acquired language to a reasonable extent. So even when hearing impairment sets in, they were still able to use language, no matter how discordant, but they were still able to use speech. And sometimes their hearing can be helped, can be enhanced and improved through amplification. So meaning what is lost can be complemented with amplification or visual supplement. So here we can group it into two. Basically, I've mentioned four: congenital hearing impairment, adventitious hearing impairment, prelingual hearing impairment, postlingual hearing impairment. But then we can regroup it into two. Congenital hearing impairment are also prelingual hearing impaired. Those with congenital hearing impairment are also prelingual hearing impaired, meaning because their hearing impairment started at birth, they were not able to acquire speech. They were not able to acquire language. It starts before language acquisition. This other one, adventitious hearing impairment, will also go together with postlingual hearing impairment, because these ones were born with normal hearing, but they lost it along the line, and in most cases, language has been acquired. They lost it after the acquisition of speech and language. So they are the hard of hearing that in most cases still have residual hearing and residual speech. But this other group, congenital and prelingual, they do not have residual hearing, they do not have residual speech, and they are in most cases classified as the real deaf, while these other ones are classified as the hard of hearing because they have residual hearing, residual speech, because it was postlingual and adventitious. So the last typology we'll be looking at is place of lesion. Place of lesion typology. Where did it happen? Where it occurred? So under place of lesion typology, we have the conductive hearing impairment or the conductive hearing loss. The conductive hearing loss is a hearing loss that results as a result of problem in the conductive pathways of hearing. Where are the conductive pathways? The conductive pathways of hearing are the outer ear and the middle ear. Any problem that results, any hearing impairment that results as a result of a defect in the conductive pathways of the outer ear and the middle ear is called conductive hearing impairment, conductive hearing loss. Example, external ear may develop inflammation, which is called otitis externa, and that inflammation will interrupt the flow of acoustic energy. And once that happens, it will be called conductive hearing loss. Also, the eardrum may be ruptured, the eardrum may be punctured, the eardrum may be inflamed, which is otitis media. Once that happens, it will affect the process of hearing, and that is still conductive hearing impairment. So basically, conductive hearing impairment is any hearing loss that results as a result of problem in the conductive pathways, the outer ear and the middle ear. That is conductive hearing impairment. So apart from conductive hearing impairment, we have sensorineural hearing impairment. Remember, we are still talking about place of lesion, where it happened. So meaning when you are talking about hearing impairment, it's either you are talking about the degree, or you'll be talking about the place, or you even be talking about the time of onset. These are the ways you can classify hearing impairment so that people listening to you will know, oh, you know what you're talking about. You are not just telling us that this person has a hearing impairment, but you are telling us to the specifics, the type of hearing impairment. So, place of lesion typology, we have conductive hearing loss, which is a problem or hearing loss that results as a result of a problem in the conductive pathways, outer ear and middle ear. So, sensorineural hearing impairment or sensorineural hearing loss is a hearing impairment that results as a result of problem in the inner ear. Once the inner ear is faulty, the process of hearing will be interrupted, and that is sensorineural hearing impairment. Now, these two hearing impairment, it is easier to treat conductive hearing impairment than treating sensorineural hearing impairment. For example, excessive wax in the outer ear can cause conductive hearing loss. And at that point, once there is syringing or once it is removed, the hearing will be restored. It is not the same as sensorineural hearing impairment that is more severe. So sensorineural hearing impairment is the hearing impairment that occurs in the inner ear. We also have mixed hearing impairment. Mixed hearing loss, mixed hearing impairment, as the name implies, is any hearing loss that occurs in the conductive pathway and the inner ear. So once the inner ear is affected and any part on the conductive pathway is affected, it is a mixed hearing loss. Meaning it is not only the inner ear that is affected, but a point or a part in the conductive pathway. It could be the middle ear alone, middle ear and inner ear. So that is mixed hearing loss or mixed hearing impairment. There is another one called central hearing impairment. Central hearing impairment is a hearing impairment that occurs as a result of a problem in the auditory cortex of the brain. Central, the brain, the central processing unit, CPU, which is the brain. If the part of the brain responsible for the interpretation of auditory stimuli is affected to the extent it does not interpret what is heard well, to the extent what is heard cannot be well interpreted in the brain, that is central hearing loss. Meaning the outer ear, middle ear, and inner ear are okay, they are intact. The part of the brain that is supposed to interpret what is heard is faulty, then there will be a central hearing loss. This could be as a result of fault in the 8 cranial nerves, fault in the auditory nerves, fault in the auditory cortex. Wherever the fault is in the brain that has to do with hearing will lead to central hearing impairment. Then there is psychogenic hearing loss. Psychogenic hearing impairment or psychogenic hearing loss is a hearing loss that has nothing to do with the physiology of the hearing process. No, it has nothing to do with the anatomy of the hearing process. No, it has all to do with the psychology of the person or the emotion of the person. So when the person is psychologically disturbed, emotionally disturbed, to the extent you are talking to the person sitting beside you or before you is not hearing what you are saying. Even when the hearing system, the auditory system is intact, that is psychogenic hearing impairment. This happens to people that are bereaved, people that are emotionally disturbed, that are depressed. Their mind is somewhere else. Their mind is not with you. Yes, their hearing is intact. They can hear. But because they are emotionally disturbed, because they are bereaved, because their mind is somewhere else, whatever you are saying, they can't hear. Sometimes when you touch them, they do like this. When you touch them, they like shudder. Oh, what's happening? Oh, I've been talking to you for some time. Oh, I'm sorry. Then they come back to the present. So that is psychogenic hearing impairment. In most cases, it is not physiological hearing impairment. Nothing is wrong with their hearing auditory system, but just that their mind is somewhere else or they are disturbed. Then another one is feigned hearing impairment. Feigned hearing impairment is the hearing impairment that some of us do till today. When somebody is talking to you and you don't want to hear or you don't want to listen, you pretend to be hearing impaired. Some of us that are malingerers, when our parents are trying to ask us to do 1 or 2 chores and you don't feel like doing it, they'll be calling you, you just pretend you didn't hear. Or they'll be talking to you, you pretend you didn't hear. That is feigned hearing impairment or pretended hearing impairment. Remember, we are still talking about place of the loss, place of the hearing impairment. So in talking about the place, we have been able to mention conductive hearing impairment, sensory neural hearing impairment, psychogenic hearing impairment, mixed hearing impairment, central hearing impairment, feigned hearing impairment. Also, we have unilateral hearing impairment, and that is hearing impairment in one ear. It happens. Some people will be hearing well with this ear, but they won't hear well with this ear. And that is unilateral hearing impairment. Those people, when you talk to them, they will turn this way or they turn this way, meaning the ear that is functioning better is the one they will direct towards you. The one that is not functioning well, if you are talking from there, they may not hear. But if you are talking from this other side, depending on the degree of the loss, but if you are talking from the better one, they will hear. And in most cases, that is the one they will turn towards the speaker. That is unilateral hearing impairment. Also, the last one, bilateral hearing impairment, that is hearing impairment in both ears, hearing impairment in the two ears. Depending, the degree can vary, but then it is evident in both ears. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, to like and share our video, and click the notification button so that when we upload subsequent videos, you'll be notified. Thank you for watching Seed Matters. My name is Abi Carlo Obo.